Chelsea's left-sided dynamics in the game against Wolves were absolutely perfect, and in today's video we're going to be talking about exactly how it was constructed using the trio and this triangle, which is a synergy that we spoke about in the preview before this game of Cucurella, Enzo Fernandez and Alejandro Garnacho. So to get straight into it, Wolves were basically pressing out of this back five shape, and something we expected. Now, a lot of the commentating was basically saying that Cresci was playing in midfield. He was playing in midfield on the ball. He was stepping up a bit. But as we were pinning Wolves and like how they were defending against us, even from sort of goal kicks and restarts, Cresci was in the middle of the back three. And he was able to sort of just basically be on the lap. That was sort of the key there. How they were pressing in the front line was essentially with Larsson more or less sort of ready to jump on either centre-back, Chalobah, or coming over and blocking the passing lanes over here. Hwang was basically playing as a second striker, but a little bit deeper. So he was more or less tasked with Fofana, but also both Larsson and Hwang were essentially looking to block off that passing lane, if we get a line here, into Caicedo. So they were both tasked with a centre-back each of the two, but also sort of managing Caicedo. So it's a little bit one goes, one stays, and sort of yin and yang with that. On the other side, though, and this is where it gets more interesting, you had the three in midfield from Wolves, which you had Bellegarde, Andre, and Gomez. Gusto was pushed up in an inverted role, as we expected. Gomez was basically covering him man for man. Bang. Pedro and Andre, pretty much the same. Pedro at the spearhead of that sort of diamond kite-shaped midfield that we speak about. Andre basically staying with him. So where you could pull this team apart with Wolves and how you could sort of work your way through whilst controlling the game, forcing Wolves back and really limiting them to having no real outlet in transition, was pushing them into that 5-3-2 shape and exploiting this left-hand side of the pitch, which is exactly what Chelsea did to perfection. And it's similar to how we did against the likes of Liverpool. The reason this left-hand side works so well is because you have two extremely intelligent players when it comes to manipulating space as well as the ball with Fernandez and Cucurella. And what they're able to do with not only Bellegarde's positioning between the two, because his role was essentially to jump onto Cucurella, but also try and manage Fernandez behind him and keep him in the cover shadow, so that Bueno then had time to sort of get up and jump up as well, so they could go man for man. In that sense, Cresci would come over and they essentially shift into a back four for the time being, essentially a 4-3-3 with Bueno joining the midfield three. However, with the rotations from Cucurella and Fernandez, what they were able to often do is drag Bellegarde around, and Fernandez was able to drop so deep into this half. Cucurella would drop almost central or go even ahead of the ball where Bellegarde would follow him. And then Bueno, with Fernandez being the one deeper, Bueno was so far away that he didn't know whether to jump all the way or not. And he was stuck in a little bit of an indecision, which would not only create an issue for sort of create an issue for Bueno, where Fernandez is able to create separation, get his head up and get touches on the ball, but also then what starts to happen is something that we've been speaking about, and how this triangle is so effective is because on this side where you've got two players who want to sort of manipulate the space a little bit deeper, keep possession, and you've got somebody with Fernandez with such elite passing range, that runner is so important. And what was happening is that passing gate, is if you how you want to call it, because Bueno's jumping out, the passing gate goes from being two passing gates of that sort of distance and width to being one big one. So when Bueno jumps out, Fernandez and even Cucurella at times, they're looking to play that pass in between, because you know Garnacho is going to look to get in behind, and he can either get it behind or he can spin inside, and there's different ways he can attack this space on either side of the ball. And this is exactly what Chelsea did, and it was working to perfection. If we use a few examples here, you can see on this occasion it's actually Shueshi, or Jackson Shuesha, cannot pronounce that. Chachua, let's say. He was the one jumping out on this one occasion to Enzo, who's deeper. Bellegarde, as you can see, Larsson is trying to manage the ball into either Caicedo or Cucurella, but also Bellegarde is pushed up and he's ready to go with Cucurella. So that leaves the space in behind where Cucurella now looks to sort of play the ball. And like, I don't think I actually have the pass on this occasion, but the space on this occasion, because Bueno's not the one that's jumped out, but Chachua is, Garnacho's in a bit of space to go 1v1. So that's what happened on that occasion. But it was how they were manipulating things on that left-hand side. And it's a synergy and a dynamic that I've wanted to see Chelsea start to integrate. If you didn't see the video about synergies, which was the last one before this one, I'd really recommend you go and watch that, because We talk about winger pairings. We talk about the triangles on either side of the pitch. We talk about the sort of central midfielders and the centre-backs. There's so many important synergies that need to develop across the pitch as the season goes on. And this triangle on the left, for me, is the one that can develop really, really quickly and really, really efficiently because it has all the pieces already there. If we skip on to here, what you actually have on this occasion, again, is Enzo has managed to rotate away and take Bellegarde into the middle of the pitch. So Cucurella now has a lot of time and space. And what's so key about this is because you're technically, Enzo is on the back of Bellegarde. So if Bellegarde presses away, he is as far away from the centre-back, who you can just see the shadow of here, having to jump a larger distance. If Enzo is stood here, for example, then it's much easier for the centre-back's already got the body on him, and Bellegarde already knows that because there's a body on him, he has more license to press Cucurella quicker. But because of Enzo's positioning, Bellegarde is reluctant to press Cucurella, so Cucurella gets time on the ball, and he knows that the centre-back's going to have to make a larger jump. So Enzo's positioning is just so clever and key. And it allows him to get into these scenarios where he can create a little bit of separation for himself, because this is the same play. What happens here is Bellegarde looks to press Cucurella. Enzo Fernandez receives the ball with a little bit of time and space to the point that he can pick his head up and he can use that passing range that we know he's got. He plays the switch to Neto. He gets the ball and he can attack his fullback. So these are the moments. And this is where we see it with Garnacho, because here is exactly what we were talking about a minute ago, where I keep forgetting his name. Bellegarde goes to press Cucurella, which means Bueno has to push all the way out on Enzo, and they've manipulated both of those players, which has left, look where Cresci is, so close in the middle of the pitch, because they're doubling up on Liam Delap in the middle, which is also another key point. Delap is basically pinning both of them, more so this sided player, but it makes Cresci unknown whether he wants to sort of push over a little bit more and defend that gap, which opens up this passing gate that we were talking about. And this one doesn't actually pay off, but Cucurella looks to play that pass into that gap that we just spoke about. If we go to this again here, Cucurella has managed to drag Bellegarde out here in the press, which means Bueno has had to jump up to Enzo. Enzo knows that that space is open. Delap's already on his run here as well, which you can see. And then if we go on to the next image, you can see Garnacho's just out of shot here. I'm not sure why that is. I don't think that's how I took it. But you guys will remember that ball was going through this passing gate that we just spoke about. And Garnacho gets on the end of it and he puts it across the box and we nearly score from it. So it's those chances, and it continued to happen. Look where Enzo Fernandez is here. He's deeper. Casado's the one that's now taken up this higher position. And it's just disorientating the press because, again, you've got the two strikers. You've got Gomez, who's meant to be on Gusto. You've got Andre, who is he's meant to be marking João Pedro. Now you've got Bellegarde, who is now having to watch Casado, who's moving off the ball because he's rotating where he's going to where Enzo was, which is now also going to leave Cucurella with a bit of space. So all these rotations on this left-hand side, especially between the triangle that we're talking about here, was so key to disrupting this Wolves defensive unit, and it worked wonders. Even in the first half when we didn't get a goal, that was when I was really impressed with the movements and the intent of not only Garnacho to run in behind, but the rotations between these two to make things work. And in the second half, it paid off. Garnacho got 2 assists. I thought he was really, really good. Enzo, for me, was the man of the match. I think the two of them, Fernandez and Garnacho, were the best 2 players on the pitch. And then, again, as the game starts to go on, Gusto as well, getting his first goal, has to be sort of said. Wasn't his best game, but he's the one that gets the breakthrough, and that's a big, big point to go against his name in this game. But then as well, you get João Pedro ends up going up front. He gets another goal because Esteval comes onto the pitch after 60 seconds. He's literally created something. It's just he gets people on their feet. You can also tell when Esteval got the ball, the first time he touched the ball, the crowd was just, it was the loudest I'd heard it since the start of the game pretty much, other than the goal, to the point where everybody was just on their feet because Esteval had the ball. And I think that's also something that Chelsea can use to their favour in terms of using Esteval to raise the morale around the team when in tough moments, because you know that the crowd are just so in love with him already as a player that he is a tool in so many different ways. And that is another one in terms of injecting a bit of energy into the stadium and really trying to sort of bring a bit of momentum and gather momentum and sort of rally the troops. using him. So I thought that was key in the second half. There's so much sort of individual performances we could talk about. Wesley Fofana, brilliant again in his duels, and sort of keep making sure that these two weren't able to create anything on that out ball. Like we said, if Wolves won it back and tried to play direct, this 3 versus 2, they were able to win every time. And that was largely down to Fofana being very aggressive. So that was key again. So that's all we really want to talk about in this game. Like I said, I want to try and talk about the main tactical aspects from the game. We'll touch on a few individuals here and there when we do these tactical reviews. But I really wanted to touch on this left-hand side of the pitch because I did think it was key. And it is something that I've been talking about way before this game. So hopefully you guys have been here to see those previews where we spoke about it. And now you've seen it in action and exactly what I've been trying to explain to you. And you've now seen it play out on your TV screens watching Chelsea or in the stadium, wherever you watch. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. International break, we're going to have a lot of tactical videos, hopefully some collabs and stuff on the channel as well. So watch out for those. Support them all with likes, comments, hype, subscribe, all of that stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next one.